This is a leash. What you see, though, as a leash, I see as a link to hope. Because 10 years ago, my group, American Scent Dog Association, began research with our canine search and rescue team and our trained dogs to see if they could find human cancer. But we never intended the dogs to stay in a lab as a diagnostic tool. Our goal then, and our goal today, is to create a tool for someone who has cancer, who lives in fear their remission status has changed. We believe that this is a link to hope for them, with a dog on one end and a cancer patient on the other. Because it's not just about detecting your remission status, it's also the profound bond that comes when you put a dog with a person. I want to take you on the journey of how we got to where we are today. But every journey for us, it's got to start with the dog. I happen to have a dog. Yay, thank you. Who will turn sideways and backwards, and he will keep you humble always. This is John D. When I talk about the profound bond that a dog has with humans, it's because I've worked this dog in Joplin after the F5 tornado looking for victims. I've been with this dog when we brought children home. I handled this dog finding dementia patients and finding cold case forensic grave sites for people we never thought could be found. But he did. We were also called to a river one day for a drowning recovery. And on that day when we got to the river, as I was unpacking my gear, a woman came up and said, "Do you mind if I talk to your dog?" We always let people interact with the dogs because it's incredibly therapeutic in a disaster or emergency situation. So as I got my gear, she's talking to him, and a few minutes later, we're ready to go out on a boat to search the river for the victim. The woman's gone. John D. and I worked the river that day for hours, and you grid back and forth on the river, up and down, until the dog dips his nose. And everybody on the boat knows what that means. I called the alert, and that meant that we could go back to shore and the divers could go down. But this time when we got back to shore, John D. jumps off the boat and he goes running right back to the woman who had befriended him. And he just leans against her. I have no clue what he's doing, until the woman looks at me and says, "When you got here, I whispered in your dog's ear, 'You are my only hope. Please go tell my son it's time to come home.'" A few minutes later, her son was pulled up from the river where John D. had pinpointed him. Later that day, the woman came up to me and said, "You don't know what it's like to wrap your arms around a dog and put all of your hope in an animal." And I said, "Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do." I'm going to take you back to 2004. I had a horrible headache for days. Finally got to the end of the work week, and I could lie down and just rest. But my dog at the time, Harrison, decided I would not rest. It became important for him to sit on my head, poke me, prod me, and then stare at me. Now, he's normally a very dignified and noble animal. Realizing that he was not going to leave me alone, I drove to the hospital, told the triage nurse, "My head is going to explode. My dog has sent me." I did not really expect the response I got, which was for her to wrap her arms around me and whisper in my ear, I understand. I have a dog too. I went back to the examining room and they gave me a shot for a migraine. But since I'd never had one before, they decided they'd run tests too. And then the doctor comes in and he holds your hand. Never hold hands with an ER doctor. But still, he looks at me and he says, "We found 4 blood clots in your brain. It's going to be tough to get you through these next few days. But if we can, your dog will have saved your life." My dog, my life. I spent the next week in the hospital wondering, how do I go back to being the person that had a normal life if every headache could be the one that could kill you? Because there wasn't really a fix for blood clots. Do you take an aspirin for a headache? Do you go check into the hospital and write your will? It's a terrifying thing to not know your health status. And when I ask the doctors, what can I do? I don't want to live feeling like I have no control. I want normal again. And his answer was, yeah, we don't have anything for that. And I thought, that's not a very good answer, because I am incredibly ornery when I don't hear what I need to hear. So there was no hope. Then it hit me. I've got a dog at home. I have my dog. But being a skeptic, I'm thinking, but what if it was a fluke? What if he'd never do it again? What if he didn't really know something was wrong? How do I know that I can trust that animal with something as significant as the headache that will kill you and the headache you take an aspirin for? There aren't a lot of places to go and learn what you can do about understanding a dog's nose, unless you sign up for a canine search and rescue team, because that's what they do. All they do is study dogs and their noses and what they do. I called them and said, I will be there. And I went. And I've been going every week for the last 12 years. I'm now the canine trainer. I'm the president of the team. And in 2013, this dog, who's completely bored by everything I say, was named the nation's Search and Rescue Hero Dog of the Year. I tell you that so you know I am passionate about what these dogs can do. I have seen it. I've trusted my life to them. When people come to our team and I'm training them, they'll say, how does a dog do what they do? And I tell them, dogs smell at parts per trillion. Parts per trillion is like the national debt. We can't understand it. It's too big of a number. But let's think about it in terms of a spoonful in 2 Olympic-sized swimming pools. And for anyone doing the math, that is not a trillion, that's a billion, parts per billion. Or a trillion is, 1 grain of salt in a big container of salt? No, that's 1 to 7.778 million. I don't know who counted the salt, but that's the number. I'm sure an engineer came up with that. Or 1 bad apple in 2 million barrels. The point is, what a dog can detect with their nose is astounding. While a human has 5 to 6 million olfactory receptors, dogs have, from the lowly dachshund with 125 million to the bloodhound with 300 million, a typical dog we would work with that is a snouted working or herding dog has 220 to 250 million olfactory receptors. What can they do with that when you smell at parts per trillion too? Well, I'll tell you. What you smell when you walk into a bakery is a cake. What a dog smells is every element of every single thing and everything in the bakery. They smell the baking soda, the salt, the vanilla, the flour in infinite detail. And their nose never gets used to a scent. Ours do. And dogs have the incredible ability to remember scent. When a dog does remember scent, we call that imprinting them. Imprinting is like the scent of popcorn or coffee. You know it anywhere. We teach a dog a scent, and we call that imprinting. Dogs also have something called a vomeronasal gland that a lot of mammals have that helps them understand taste converted to scent. We can't possibly understand it because humans don't have it, but dogs do. So one day we got a call, being that we were complete nuts about science and dogs, we got a call from a doctor, and he said, I know you have studied animals, but do you believe a dog could possibly detect the scent of ovarian cancer? And I told him, if any dog can do it, let John D. try. We went to the lab a week or so later, and the first thing we had to do was determine, does cancer have a scent? So we took benign tumors and malignant tumors, and we had to imprint the dog on the scent of the malignant tumor. To do that, we gave it a nonsensical name. And that way, if we gave the dog the command to find the nonsensical name of the tumor, it would also keep people from being panicked when he comes up to them, because he's only looking for the tumor, the malignant tumor, when I give him the command using the nonsensical word. So I imprint him with the scent of the malignant tumor, and then I tell him to find it, giving him the nonsensical word. So we have our benign tumors, our malignant tumors, and I give him the word. Goes right to it. Think it's a fluke. We mix them all up. He goes right to it again. Amazed with that, we decided to imprint 5 more dogs that day. Every single dog. Same thing, in moments. But if you already have the tumor out, you know if it's benign or malignant. So how do you come up with a diagnostic tool? Well, the one thing I can tell you a dog understands, urine. People talk in email, and we think we're cool because we've done that for 25 years. Dogs talk in P-mail, and they've done it for tens of thousands of years. They understand disease through urine. Of other dogs, they can tell from the urine how old the dog is, the health of the dog, what it had for dinner last night if it wanted a romantic encounter. Dogs understand urine, so it was the perfect diagnostic tool. But does a malignant tumor end up in your urine? We decided we had to try. Now, John D. was going to be the first dog up, so they hid lots and lots and lots of urine all over a lab. Lots of urine. Only one sample was from a woman with ovarian cancer. And nobody was allowed in the lab because humans cue animals. You don't mean to, you don't even know you're doing it, but the dog does. They're experts in everything humans do. So we were all looking through 2-way mirrors. The researcher had John D. at the door and told me to give him the word, the cue word. My heart was in my throat. I gave him the cue word. Into the room he goes, around the lab, and then he just lies down. The researcher calls out, John D., show me again. He takes his paw, lifts it up, and smacks it down, wham, right on the same scent he had it on the first time. And he looks at the researcher, and I swear to you, he broke out in a grin. At the same time, the researcher called out, his paw is on the malignant sample. This dog from a shelter had just found ovarian cancer in a urine sample. But what do you do with a dog that can detect cancer? And by the way, all 5 dogs that day did the same thing. And all 5 dogs were owned by people who got them from shelters. No pedigrees are needed, just a dog with a nose and a heart. But what do you do if you keep dogs in labs doing that kind of detection, cancer detection? They end up living in kennels. We don't want that. And if a dog can isolate an odor then a gas spectrometer quickly makes the dog in the lab obsolescent. There's no point to it. More importantly, we believe that where a cancer-detecting dog belongs is with the patient who has cancer, who wants some control over their life. They can test themselves at home from their own urine sample. Every fever, every swelling, they don't have to panic because they'll learn to trust the dog. We can imprint this dog on an exact duplicate of their tumor. And most importantly, that bond that grows from the dog being with that patient creates an ability for them to have comfort, to feel normal, to have a friend when they get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and they don't want to wake anybody else up and they're wondering, what's it going to be like if it comes back? That thing that controls me? The dog is there with them because we pair these dogs uniquely with the cancer patient, one-on-one, one person, one dog for life. We've seen this happen. We've seen the miracles that happen when you take this, and instead of a leash, this becomes your connection to hope for a cancer patient. A dog, cancer patient. Maybe it's even someone that lives in fear that they're genetically predisposed to get cancer. Could the dog tell them when they start with the very tiniest bits of cancer that it's coming back? Because we've already proven these dogs, not only can they tell ovarian cancer from thyroid cancer, they can even tell types of thyroid cancer. Rare variants, they can tell follicular thyroid cancer from papillary thyroid cancer. They can tell tall cell variant of thyroid cancer from Hurfel cell variant of follicular cancer. And they make it look easy. But they make it look easy when there's a person they're working with that they care about. And that's why we believe where you put a cancer-detecting dog is with a person who understands how important they are. We've seen what these animals can do. We believe in them. We trust them. And what we are asking you to do is believe that this is an idea whose time has come. Because we believe, and we want you to believe, hope can come covered in fur. For me, it's got a fluffy tail too. Thank you. Cindy, come. Cindy, come. Let's go. Come on. Okay, let's go.